Alright, continuing our 10.3 notes, we're going to talk about multiplying polynomials that aren't necessarily two binomials or two monomials. For example, we might have some trinomial multiplication here. There are several different methods for doing this, and these methods also work for multiplying binomials. So if FOIL doesn't work for you, or if the table method doesn't work for you, one of these might. Now the horizontal method involves using the distributive property to multiply the first term of the first binomial by each term of the second polynomial, and then repeating that process for each of the other terms of the first polynomial. Then we combine our like terms and write our answer out as a polynomial. So for example, we will take the first term here, this 2x squared, and we're going to multiply that by each of these terms. So we distribute. Then we'll multiply this 5x times each of these two terms. And then we'll multiply this negative 1 times each of these two terms. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1, 2, 3 times 1, 2, so 3 times 2 is 6. So we should end up with 6 total terms here, and then we will simplify and combine our like terms. So first we have 2x squared times 4x. Then we have 2x squared times negative 3 plus 5x times 4x plus 5x times negative 3 minus 1 times 4x minus 1 times negative 3. And remember, I put this minus 1 here because I have a negative 1. Now, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different terms. 3 times 2 is 6. Now I'll simplify. 2 times 4 is 8. X squared times x is x cubed. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Then I have x squared. 5 times 4 is 20. And x times x is x squared. 5x times negative 3 is negative 15x. Negative 1 times 4x is negative 4x. And negative 1 times negative 3 is a positive 3. Now I'll combine my like terms. This is the only cubed term, so I have 8x cubed. I have negative 6x squared plus 20x squared. So if I combine my negative 6 and my 20, I get a positive 14x squared. Then I have negative 15x minus 4x, which is negative 15 plus negative 4. So that's minus 19x. And then I have my plus 3 on the end. So that is my answer. I multiply the first term of the first polynomial by each term in the second one, then the second term in the first one by each term in the second one, then the last term in the first one by each term in the second one, write it all out as a sum, combine my like terms and simplify, and my answer is a polynomial. Now there is another method that we can use to multiply polynomials. It's called the vertical method. In the vertical method, we will multiply polynomials very much like the way you might multiply large integers. So if you had, say, 147 times 32, you would line up 147 times 32, and then you multiply 2 times 7 is 14, 2 times 4 is 8, plus the 1 is 9, 2 times 1 is 2, we've dropped a 0 down here, then 3 times 7 is 21, 3 times 4 is 12, 13, 14, 3 times 1 is 3, and 4, and so I have 4, 10, 7, and 4. So that's my answer after I add these down. Multiplying a polynomial by another polynomial in the vertical method works pretty much exactly the same way. We will line our two polynomials up vertically so that our polynomials are all the way to the right. Then we're going to multiply the top row by the last term of the bottom row, write our answers below the line, then continue for the next to the last term in the bottom row. And we'll make sure that our like terms line up vertically, which is what we did here. So the first thing I'm going to do is rewrite this in vertical form. I'll have x squared plus 6x minus 7. And then underneath I have 3x minus 4. Generally you want to put your smaller term on the bottom. And then I draw my line. I have my multiplication symbol out here. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at this last term here, negative 4, and I'll multiply it times every term up here. So negative 4 times negative 7 gives me a positive 28. Negative 4 times 6x gives me a negative 24x, and this is plus 28 because that 28 is positive. Negative 4 times x squared gives me negative 4x squared. Now, I'll multiply my 3x times each one of these terms. 3x times negative 7 gives me negative 21x. Now, I want to line up my x term underneath my first x term here. So I'm going to say negative 21x. That's going to leave me with a blank space here, and that's fine. Now I have 3x times 6x, which gives me 18x squared. I want my x squared terms to line up, so I have 18x squared, and that's positive. And then I have 3x times x to the second, which is going to be 3x to the third. Now I do have a blank space up here because I didn't have a third term, and that's fine. Now I will add down my columns. 0x cubed plus 3x cubed just gives me 3x cubed, or 3x cubed plus nothing. 18 plus negative 4 gives me 14x squared. Negative 21 plus negative 24 gives me negative 45x. And 28 plus nothing just gives me 28. I don't have any like terms to combine here because these all have different variable parts. So that is my answer. It works the same way as when you use the horizontal method. It's just you're lining them up vertically. And then when we add them the same way we added polynomials vertically in 2.2 or in 10.2. But you can use whichever method you prefer. Now the last thing for this objective is to talk about special product patterns. There are a few special product patterns that we can use to simplify multiplying binomials. So if we have a binomial and that binomial is squared, its product will always follow this pattern. So we'll look at that with this example. Here, x is a and 5 is b. So when we multiply this out, we'll follow that pattern. A squared, so that's x squared, plus 2 times a times b, and notice I'm using my x and my 5 here for a and b, plus b squared, which is going to be 5 squared. And now I'll simplify. X squared remains the same. 2 times 5 times x gives me 10x, and 5 squared gives me 25. So that's my answer. I don't have to worry about writing this out as a plus b times a plus b and foiling because I can follow this pattern here. This is called the square of a binomial pattern. We'll talk about the sum and difference pattern down here. For the square of differences, I have the exact same rule, but if I have a minus sign here, I have a minus sign here. If I have a plus sign here, I have a plus sign here, and I always have a plus sign before my b squared. So here I have 2x squared minus 2 times 2x times 3 plus 3 squared. Now, be very careful here because you have to make sure that you square both the 2 and the x. So 2 squared is 4, and x squared is just x squared. Minus 2 times 3 is 12 times x, plus 3 squared, which is 9. So that's my answer here. Again, it just follows that pattern along. Last is the sum and difference pattern. Essentially what happens here is that you'll end up with a times a, so a squared, a times negative b, which is going to be negative ab, and then you'll have a positive ab, so negative ab plus positive ab will cancel out, and then you'll have this minus b squared at the end here. So essentially when you see a term x plus 3 times x minus 3, you can immediately say that's x squared minus 3 squared. And then we simplify, x squared minus 9. And that's my answer.